Good afternoon and welcome to CCK Live. My name is Jenna Zelmer. Joining me today are Elise Phillips and Kevin Medeiros. All three of us represent veterans before the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims in arguing about whether or not the VA made a legal error in denying veterans their benefits. And so today we're going to be talking about VA disabilities for neck pain. We're going to be talking about first how you get over the initial threshold of determining service connection, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about how VA rates neck pain. As always, we'll have more information on our website at cck-law.com. We'll try to answer any questions in the comments below. And so let's just kick it off. Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about how a veteran can get service connected for neck pain?
Sure. Service connection for neck pain is a lot like service connection for other conditions in the sense that you have to show that the pain is related to your military service. So in general, you need three elements to establish service connection: a diagnosis, a nexus, which is that relationship to service, and something that had happened in service. But today, talking about neck pain, we're just going to be dealing with how to establish the service connection in the absence of an actual diagnosis. So how to get service connection for neck pain without, say, arthritis, for example. So in order to establish service connection for neck pain, the pain needs to be chronic, long-lasting, or constantly recurring. VA will not provide compensation for neck pain if there was at one time neck pain, but has since resolved. So there needs to be some sort of a showing that the pain is ongoing and that it does impair a veteran's functioning on at least a recurring basis. Common instances of neck injuries that can satisfy that in-service element that I alluded to earlier. Some are whiplash, spinal cord damage, a disc injury, nerve pitch injury, repetitive strain, and then actual diagnoses, which can be causes of neck pain that are degenerative disc disease, foraminal stenosis, and intervertebral disc disease. So those are some common causes of neck pain. And the last thing that I wanted to note about getting service connected for neck pain is that a veteran can get service connection if they had pain prior to their service and their service aggravated or worsened the pain or the condition that they entered service with. So that's a little bit of a different scenario, but there is that avenue available to veterans.
Yeah, aggravation of a pre-existing condition is always a little bit more complicated. I think I would recommend to veterans to talk to your veteran service rep or your attorney, whoever's helping you with these claims, and make sure that they can take a look at your entrance exams to kind of determine under what standard you might fall. So as everything in VA, it's really legally complicated. It's not as simple as it seems. And so it's really important to talk to your rep or your attorney because there's a lot of ways that you can fall into a trap and not have the best argument. And we want you to have the best argument. So great. Thanks, Kevin. So once you establish service connection, that doesn't automatically necessarily mean you get a rating. It's possible you could get a non-compensable rating, or, you could have a rating anywhere from 0 to 100%. Well, actually, probably not 100%. I think Elise is going to talk a little bit about that. But Elise, explain to me, once a veteran is service connected for the neck, what is likely to happen? How is VA going to rate that neck pain?
Sure. So as with any condition that gets service connected, just because you have service connection, like Jenna said, doesn't mean that you have a compensable rating. So what they're going to do is they're going to actually look at not just whether it's related to service, but the second question is how severe is it and how does it affect your day-to-day? Most neck conditions actually involve the cervical spine. So what that means is that VA most typically will be looking at the general rating formula for injuries to the spine, which is under section 38 CFR 4.71A. Like Jenna said, some rating criteria do go up to a 100% rating, but the actual maximum rating that you can get for a neck condition under 4.71A is a 40%. So just to touch upon some of those ratings and what they look like, just a quick overview of them. What they look to determine how severe something is really how much movement you have in your neck or your spine. So the most severe, like we said, is a 40% rating. And to get a 40% rating for your neck only, you're going to have unfavorable ankylosis of the entire cervical spine. So the difference between unfavorable and favorable ankylosis is that unfavorable ankylosis means that you don't have movement of your spine. Very, very basic explanation of it. Unfavorable means that your neck is stuck in an unnatural position. So maybe it's stuck like this or stuck to a side. Whereas favorable ankylosis would just mean that it's stuck in a neutral or natural position. So for a 40%, you do need unfavorable ankylosis of the entire cervical spine. It is rare, and it's hard to get a 40% rating. Moving down the rating criteria, you'll see probably more common situations where you're dealing with limited flexion or forward flexion is specifically what they're looking at. For example, at 30%, you're limited to 15 degrees. You're limited to, you can't go any over 15 degrees. For 20%, you're in between 15 and 30. For a 10, you're in between 30 and 40, and goes on. A 30% can also be granted if you have favorable ankylosis of the entire cervical spine. So like I said, you're not moving, but it's in a natural or neutral position versus like being bent like this. And at 20, you're also going to be looking at a combination of range of motion. So not just forward flexion, but you're also looking at the way that you can move side to side, and same with the 10%. The way that they'll measure this is at a C&P exam. They'll actually take a tool that will measure how far you can bend your neck. So if we want to also just touch upon some examples of neck conditions, like I said, a cervical strain, that's going to be a common torn muscle or tendon in the neck. We'll also see degenerative arthritis in the spine. Again, that's involving your cervical spine, and cervical spine stenosis, which is a narrowing of the spinal canal of the neck.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like you mentioned, it's just important to note again that this is a general formula for rating spine disability. So it doesn't really matter what your diagnosis is, whether or not you have cervical spine or degenerative arthritis of the spine, you're going to be rated under these same criteria that Elise just mentioned. And I think it's really great that we're on video because you can move your head and your neck, right? And you can show exactly, I think sometimes when it's written out, like many things that VA has written, it's kind of hard to understand. It's hard to kind of place in, daily life. But so I would really encourage everyone to check out our website. We have pictures. We have kind of a translation from VA legal speak into the English language. And so hopefully that can help you read the rating criteria and kind of determine where you think you might fall. And just one final note, you mentioned that VA will obtain these measurements at your VA exam. We have a lot of information on our website and former CCK Lives about, going to VA exams, what to expect. But I think the most important thing is just if you do receive a notice scheduling you for a VA exam, definitely don't ignore it. It's really important that VA obtain this information. They're going to make a decision on your claim, whether you attend or not. I know right now, a lot of people are concerned about attending VA exams in person. If you can't attend for any reason, definitely reach out to VA, have your rep reach out to make sure that they can try to reschedule you. Great. So moving on, one other thing we wanted to note was the cervical spine is an orthopedic condition. So it affects your musculoskeletal system. And that's why it's rated under that general formula for rating the spine. However, there are some conditions that can be secondary to your neck pain that are rated under different diagnostic codes. The most common of this is radiculopathy, which is essentially a compressed nerve in your spine. So, as Elise had demonstrated moving her head, if your neck is stuck in a particular position or you can't move it to a certain degree, that might involve compressing nerves that are in your neck, which then lead to numbness, tingling, any sorts of symptoms that radiate down your arm and into your hand even. And so that's radiculopathy. If you experience any of those symptoms, it's really important to talk about them to your VA examiner. They can diagnose you with radiculopathy, and that would be rated, if they determined that it was related to your neck condition, that would be rated under a different diagnostic code. So you could get a separate rating for that. Other common conditions that can be secondary to your neck are migraine headaches, as well as psychological disorders like depression, anxiety. If you're in constant pain, that's going to affect your mood. It's going to make you, unmotivated. It's going to make you maybe depressed. So anything that you feel like is a direct result of your neck pain, definitely make sure to talk to your VA rep or your veteran service rep, talk to your VA examiner, talk to your private examiner. Just make sure that everything is documented and that you can, make sure that if a doctor determines that it's related to your neck, make sure that you get that compensation to which you're entitled. Kevin, you had mentioned earlier that we're mostly focusing on neck pain, not necessarily any particular diagnosis. I'm wondering if the veteran didn't have a diagnosis of cervical strain or a diagnosis of degenerative arthritis, if they went to the doctor and they just said you have neck pain, you don't have any diagnosis, what could a veteran do at that point?
Right. So for a long time, VA law did require a diagnosis, an actual diagnosed condition. So a veteran could not get compensation for just their pain. They needed something else to explain the underlying cause of the pain, which might not necessarily be the case. In 2018, the Federal Circuit issued a decision called Saunders that held that VA law does not actually require the diagnosis. So you don't need something like arthritis to explain your pain. All you need is the pain and then a showing that the pain caused functional impairment in your earning capacity. So we would always encourage veterans in submitting lay statements to describe more than just their pain. They want to describe to the VA and the adjudicator who's taking a look at their case how their pain might affect their ability to perform their work or the normal working movements of their body. So, I'm in so much pain, I can't twist my neck to the left, and this affects me this way. You want to have something in addition to just the descriptions of pain, because that is how you'll be able to get a compensable rating, because you need that additional step, not just the pain.
Great. And I think, so there are two, you had mentioned the Federal Circuit. Sometimes I think it's helpful to mention the names so that veterans can look them up. So the Federal Circuit case is Saunders, is it Saunders v. Wilkie? And then after Saunders v. Wilkie, the CAVC, the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, issued a decision kind of clarifying what they thought was necessary, which is what, Kevin, you're talking about with that additional step, that functional impairment, which is weight, which is that Weight v. Wilkie too? Yeah, that's Weight v. Wilkie. So if you look up either of those conditions or either of those decisions, you can read a little bit more about them. Weight was a CCK case. We did a great job on that, Elise. Good job. But it's just helpful to kind of read what the court thinks is necessary so that we can, so that you don't want to be denied just because you didn't know what proof you needed, right? So it's really important. And then finally, we always have to talk about TDIU. Elise, do you want to talk a little bit about TDIU in the context of service-connected neck pain?
Yeah, so we did want to touch upon TDIU because like we said, The highest scheduler rating that you're going to most likely see for a neck condition is going to be a 40%, unless you have other conditions secondary to it. But you could still potentially get a 100% rating based on the functional limitations of your neck condition if you can show that you're unable to perform substantially gainful employment due to your neck, in addition to any other service connection conditions that you have. So just to touch really briefly upon it, there's two different ways that you could potentially get TDIU. The first is under 4.16A, which is what we call scheduler TDIU. And to be eligible for that, you either have to have one condition rated at 60% or two conditions with at least one that's a minimum of 40 and a second that's a second where they both combine to at least be a 70. So that second option would be what you could potentially get a scheduler rating for the neck condition under. Say you have a 40% for your neck and then another, I don't know, maybe 50 for migraines. You could potentially be eligible for scheduler TDIU if you can show that you're unable to perform substantially gainful employment. However, I did want to say that you don't need to meet these scheduler ratings to get an award of TDIU. The other option is under 4.16B, which is sometimes referred to as extra scheduler TDIU. And what that basically means is despite your ratings, you're still unable to perform substantially gainful employment. So therefore, you are entitled to unemployment benefits under the VA system, also known as TDIU. So even if you don't meet that, that 40% rating, and obviously you won't meet a 100% rating, schedularly, you could still potentially get a 100% rating through this avenue.
Yeah, and we have a lot of information on our website about TDIU. We've done a lot of CCK Lives in the past about TDIU. So hopefully our listeners and our watchers are familiar with the concept, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either us or to your veteran service rep. One thing I'll note is that the scheduler versus extra scheduler, you definitely touched on it, is a little bit complicated. VA uses the term extra scheduler in a couple different regulations, and they mean different things in TDIU versus the rating schedule itself. And so I think the important point is, as you noted, that just because you might be under extra scheduler for TDIU, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an automatic denial. And so if you do see something in a rating decision or a board decision that you think the VA got wrong about extra scheduler, definitely reach out to your rep or your attorney. It's a complicated area and it's continuing to evolve. So we want to make sure that if you are truly unable to work due to your service condition, you do get entitlement to TDIU, because that is what you're entitled to. So as I've mentioned a few times throughout this video, you can definitely visit our blog at cck-law.com. We have a ton of videos on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook and Twitter. I think those are all three, but I'm sure we will link them in the comments below. Kevin or Elise, do you have any closing remarks?
Jenna, you had already touched upon this, but it's really, really important, especially with any ortho condition, that you attend your C&P exams. While we always encourage people to submit buddy statements and lay statements, when we are working with rating criteria that are pretty mechanical, it's important to get that medical evidence in. So we do encourage you to attend C&P exams. Also, you can get private results from your doctors.
And I was just going to add one point about the lay statements that I had mentioned earlier, and that it's very important to be as detailed as possible in submitting your lay statements about how the pain actually affects your working capacity. So
thanks. I think that was perfect, because it's not just one or the other, it's the combination of the objective medical evidence and the lay statements that really makes the strongest case possible. So that was great. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time at CCK Live. Again, my name was Jenna Zellmer. Joining me today were Elise Phillips and Kevin Medeiros. Thanks.